Today, we are welcoming Monica Falconberry to the show. Monica, please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. My name's Monica Falconberry, APR, and I've got nearly 44 years of experience in educational PR, both in the public and private colleges and public school systems in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. So I've been around a while and happy to be here.
And we're excited to have you here. So most of our public relations students and small business owners often struggle with the nuts and bolts of how to do their jobs or understand concepts related to public relations. What are some of the unique challenges in school systems that you might not see in these other kinds of industries?
Well, one of the challenges we have is finding stories. I mean, we learn about them after the fact. I tease the principals all the time that I stalk their Twitter accounts and come up with story ideas. I have the best job in the world. I get to tell exciting stories about what's going on in our public schools. And, teachers just go about teaching and they forget about, hey, this is kind of a cool thing to maybe Monica wants to know about it. So that's one of the challenges. And then, of course, there's always funding at the state and national level. And then, crisis. I'm in a very large district right now. So there's really something that happens on a campus every day.
When you say something major or crisis, what are some examples of those and how do you approach those as a PR expert and professional?
They're small, not really crises versus, large ones. We've had a teacher pass out and have, a stroke in a class in the front of the class. So that causes trauma for students. So in public schools, we have kind of what I call a SWAT team of counselors that go out. And then we also send a letter home to the parents to let them know in that classroom. And then all the way to a large one, like I helped during the Uvalde situation. And in Texas, we have a very strong state association, the Texas School Public Relations Association. I always tell anyone that if you're going into school PR, you need to get immediately join your local and state associations because they are the people that know what you're going through. And they're your network. So immediately when we heard that something was going on at Uvalde, I immediately texted the PR person there and said, hey, we're coming. And what do you need? And that's just what needs to happen because when a crisis of the magnitude that happens at Uvalde, you need extra bodies. You don't know what you need, but you probably need something. We found that out in a situation that happens at a church down the road, or Sutherland Springs. We learned then that they thought that they could handle it, the PR person in that area, but then the national media comes out and all this sort of stuff, and they need to be handling the day-to-day, communicating with their parents and dealing with the staff and the trauma that's associated with and all the deals. And so we went down there to help just answer the phones and work with the national media. So, there's two ends of the spectrum when it comes to crisis. We have something that goes on every day. A kid might think that they see a gun on campus. Well, we've got to investigate that. We've got to communicate that out if it's well known. So there's a little bit about, anything and everything.
Wow. So it sounds like those social networks are incredibly important, networks like those of other public relations professionals and maybe Public Relations Society of America professionals too. And those are APR folks that know how to handle things. Whenever you're talking and coordinating with them, how do you decide who tackles the internal audiences versus the external audience versus the national audience versus you have so many audiences, not just the internal teachers, but the parents who are kind of an internal and external audience. And then you have the external audience of the national press too. How do you figure out who focuses on what and how to tackle these kinds of communication challenges?
Well, you kind of look at everyone's strengths. And being in Texas, the TSPRA, Texas School Public Relations Association, we meet annually and we get to know each other. So we know who to reach out, who's available. The superintendents also have a network. They know the same thing. During Uvalde, I reached out to PRSA because I knew it's a small town and they had, I don't even know if they had a PR person for the city, but I knew that the city was going to be inundated and all that. So some of the PRSA people leaned on them versus we were handling, in our district, we sent out counselors to help immediately. We didn't even know that we needed what we jokingly called our bulldogs, which were people, because at Uvalde, all these, the kind of command center was at the Civic Center, and that's where we were putting the teachers from Rob and like I said, the command center. And so all the national press was camped out in front of that, and they would try to sneak in. Well, then I called my superintendent. I'm like, we need bodyguards out here. And so he sent like big, strong coaches who manned the front desk. And so, I've learned through the years, because I've worked a lot of national events, that, the national press is a different breed than what you know at your local TV station. And they like to sneak in, and they like, their job is to get a story. And I understand that. But we were trying to protect the staff at that time. And that's also where some of the parents of the Rob kids were going. So it was our job to protect and communicate out to the national press what we knew at the time. But we would do it at staged times versus them getting their exclusive and all that sort of stuff.
Fascinating. So can you talk a little bit more about the nuances of dealing with the national media versus the local media? Because that whole idea of making sure that each audience is taken care of, I can imagine is extra challenging in a crisis.
Yeah. And we had some of even our local media, of course, they were all out there too, since it's close. Were upset because we weren't answering their questions right away. Well, it was such a fluid situation that, that's where rumors start. And that's how, and I understand that when you don't give them something, they will find someone to fill that void. And they were doing that. But we wanted to give them the accurate information, the accurate count. And they were calling when Uvalde was still finding out how many people were killed, or who was killed and all that sort of stuff. So you just kind of have to sometimes say, you know what, we'll get to you when we get to you. And we're going to give you the best information we can that we have at the time. One thing that we did learn from that, which might be a takeaway for your students, is whenever you post from a crisis, make sure you timestamp it, even though, Twitter timestamp it or whatever, but eventually says 1 hour, 5 hours, whatever. One of the things that was said at the beginning of Uvalde was all students are safe in school and safe. Well, that's what they knew at that exact time, because that was at the very beginning. All they knew was there was someone on the property. They didn't know that at that time the person was inside the school. So from now on, one of my takeaways, and we've done this statewide, is say, as of 2:32 p.m., this is happening.
That's so helpful. And as a parent, you want that kind of accurate information to be valued over speed, accuracy over speed. And whenever reporters who are trying to get that story out, they're doing their job, they're trying to look for other sources of information, and they're putting out things that maybe might be less accurate or from sources that are less credible. How do you handle that? Do you have to address it immediately and say, actually, as of 2:50 p.m., this is the corrected record, or do you wait? What's the strategy there?
We wait. We try to, like when it's internal in our school district, we do a 1, 2, 3. We do a 1, hey, this is happening. Then we do a middle one, hey, this is still happening, but it has not been resolved. And then we do a the situation is resolved type email out to, we email or text, whatever the preference was with when the parent registered their kid. That's what we do right now.
Do you have any stories of successes that might have led to surprises?
I do. Years ago, I was working in a district in St. Louis, and it was Friday night, like 4 o'clock, and I got a phone call, and a school bus driver had a stroke while driving on a major interstate in St. Louis, and a fourth grader was able to jump over the seat. And it was an old bus, like the air brakes. I don't know enough about buses, but air brakes, I guess, are a hard thing to navigate. And he was able to stop the bus, pull it over without anyone, no cars hit him. And he was able to stop the bus. And then another kid figured out how to use the bus radio and call it in. So I got a phone call about that, like I said, about 4:30. And they were telling me about this. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. But it's 4:30 on a Friday. Is anyone even in the newsroom if I pitched it out? But I sent a quick email saying, hey, local hero, fourth grader did this. And by Saturday, the St. Louis Dispatch had put a story on the front of the paper, and it got picked up by AP and went international. So all these news outlets were coming in. And, this little kid was on this dates it, but the Jay Leno show, they flew us out there. I ended up being released kind of from my job. I was still employed, but I served as his agent for more than a month. On the Jay Leno show, they made this little bitty, cute little bus that he pedaled out onto the show. One of the restaurants named a hero sandwich after him. He was on the front cover of People. He was just in everything. We had radio stations from London call. We had every outlet. The governor and every elected official wanted to host a special rally at his school for him. It disrupted the school's schedule on how many times, because everyone wanted to be in a picture with this kid. He was on, and they did a reenactment, the very last reenactment, if anyone's old enough to remember Rescue 911, I think it was called. They did reenactments of events, and so they shut down a highway in St. Louis, and there's like a week of doing this reenactment of what happened, and it aired. So all the kids on the bus were part of that reenactment, but this fourth grader was pulled into all these interviews, and he became the celebrity of the day. And his parents were always with him. That one parent lost her job because she was gone so much, and the next year the kid got kicked off the bus because bad behavior, because he just didn't know how to handle all this attention. And his little brother started acting up because their big brother was getting all this attention. He was on the bus, but he wasn't getting all this attention. This kid got full scholarships to I don't know how many colleges, all this sort of stuff. So one of the big lessons I learned, and I've told people this before, is if something like that big happens, I will always have a counselor as part of that team of his to help him and his family go through this. Because it was just, I think I tried to keep a list of all the media outlets. It was like over 400 media outlets that reached out and did something.
That's amazing. And what an amazing story for one small reaching out saying, hey, this might be a story, led to all of this attention. And then to have it come back around, and there are adults who probably couldn't handle that kind of attention, right? So having a counselor on duty sounds like a really good intervention to have anytime you have that kind of level of attention. Where would you put the level of attention when a counselor is triggered? Curious.
I think once he started going to Jay Leno and all that, I mean, I think that, I mean, some sort of counselor, or some sort of therapist, or someone that could help them deal with all the emotions and just the highs and the lows of everything going on.
That makes sense. Wow. So there's in a situation where we went through all the emotions of highs and lows, and then, of course, a resolution of having a situation that will be able to help people in the future, not just PR professionals, but those who they're celebrating, because you were celebrating this particular student.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Do you have any skills or tools or paradigms that help people with public relations tasks that they have to do day in and day out whenever we don't have 500 media outlets asking for interviews for a single story?
Yes, because we do, here in my district, we do a lot of special events. I teasingly say that we don't dedicate anywhere from a new school building to a rock sometimes. So we over the years, I've developed this framework, what we call the 10-step process for special event planning. And I think it would work for almost anything. I teasingly say that I plan anywhere from 20 to 50 weddings a year, because you start at the invitation and you end at the reception. But the 10-step process for us, of course, starts with the invitation subcommittee. So whatever your event is, you're going to develop your list and develop invitations and figure out for us, we do postcards now because to eliminate the envelope issue. And mainly now they've actually morphed into e-fights. Then we go to the printed program subcommittee. For dedications, we like to include every kid's name that might touch the dedication ceremony, whether there's a piece of art on the wall when you walk into the building, whether they're singing, whether they're playing, whatever. So the printed subcommittee is very important. Then we have the public reception subcommittee. So for us, after the dedication or the anniversary, we'll have a small reception. And so that person's in charge of decorating, getting the food donated, finding money for the reception, whatever, tables, all that. We also have a welcoming subcommittee. So those are the people that are in the front door. They'll welcome people. Typically for us and for schools, we have cute little kids welcoming, handing out the printed programs, welcoming, showing them where the gym is or the auditorium is. And they're also in charge of name tags and anything like that. Then for us, we have what's called, and this might not carry over to too many people, but we name our schools after people. So we have a namesake family subcommittee and a namesake gifts subcommittee. So the namesake gives gifts to the school as part of the dedication ceremony, and the school gives gifts to the namesake as part of the ceremony. So there's a whole process for that. The memory subcommittee, of course, is the people that take the pictures and record it and sell the DVDs for us to get money back to their school, things like that. And then, of course, the big subcommittee is the stage production ceremony, whether that's orchestra or band or cute little choir or an Orff instrument choir or whatever. Those people are in charge of making sure that there's some sort of program in place. And then we, like I said, we script everything so that we know that at the very beginning, there's either an MC that is introducing everyone. Then we do the welcome, the flag ceremony, the invocation, the patriotic song. Then we do personal greetings from the principal. Then, of course, the mandatory superintendent speaks, the board member speaks. We do a video tribute to the namesake. So we produce a video that's part of the ceremony. And then what we call an exit event. Because for us, we want the VIPs to be able to leave the auditorium and move to the gym for the reception. And if we don't have an exit event, then they get stuck at the front, and we have to turn the cafeteria around for the next day because we have school. We got to feed kids. So we've learned over the years to have some sort of exit event, and typically it's the singing of the school song, and we have these cute little kids, pre-K or kinder, come out, but grab their hands, take them to the gym, and we're done.
Well, it sounds like a well-oiled machine with all the steps happening and the phases happening. So I know organizational skills and planning skills are incredibly important in public relations. What are some other skills that you think sets apart a great PR pro? Whatever students or clients or small business owners are looking to do their own PR, what are those skills that they really need above other skills?
Well, two skills that when I talk to college students during career days, I tell them the two skills that I use on a daily basis is good English and typing. I know I tease my boss because my boss types with two fingers and he's pretty fast at it. But of all the skills that I was taught in high school, those are the two that I use every day. But you also need to be a multitasker. And I don't know how you teach that, but especially in school PR, because we do something different every day, and I can work on 8 things at one time. I'm lucky to have 2 great big screens, and my IT guy laughs at me all the time because I have so many stuff open at one time because let me finish this, and then, let me do this. And it's just, I think it helps keep me young because I am literally doing 100 things at one time.
What are some of the most common misconceptions in public relations? Things that you see people maybe having the wrong idea about as they look from the outside, thinking about the industry and the profession?
Well, I think a lot of people, and I only think this because I've actually had people apply for jobs in my department who said, I like to talk, so I'd be good at PR. There's more to it than that. There's strategy behind it. There's a science behind it. And just because you like even just to write or to just talk to people, those are good skills, but you've got to have a broad base of understanding of research and ask the right questions. The whys. Why are we doing this? Why do you want this video? Who do you think your audiences are? I have departments coming to me all the time. We need a video. I'm like, okay, why? Because we need a video. I'm like, who are you going to show it to? How do you distribute it? You have to ask those questions before you just start taking on jobs. That's one of the big things around here is we do ask the questions because we're a large district and we only have so much time in the day to do things. So we kind of have to pick and choose and be strategic about what we do. Everything, all the special events that we do, there is a reason why we do them. And there's a larger piece to it. Advocacy is a big piece now in schools. And so we have to get out there to, let the patrons know that their tax dollars are being used wisely. And so we do some show and tell to let them know, and we get them in our schools and get them involved. And parent engagement is a big piece now in PR. Surveying is a big piece now. Getting people's opinion, ask them what they want.
What do you mean by public schools have choice? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, even back in the day, in my day, which I'm old, we had choice of, they call it shop and mechanics and all that, but we have a huge CTE program here in our district. And I told, we have a school called Construction Careers Academy, and I was doing a story out there the other day. I'm like, if I had it all over again in high school, I would take part of your program because I need these skills at my house. I could use them when fixing things around my home. I wish I had more of a skill set in addition to my skill set. And then there's so much more choices of dual language and and STEM, which is huge. Robotics is huge. Esports is now a thing. Along with all the athletics and the fine arts and all that, that some of these other schools that are being chosen by the governor don't have, and they don't have the support for parents to get involved with.
Wow, I can imagine that's frustrating whenever you're trying to get your story out and tell the story of how these schools are successfully serving their communities.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking for a story, what are some of the elements that you look for as you're out at the shop, as you're out, interviewing the choir director, as you're looking for the things that will really shine in the media? What are some of the criteria you have in your head as you kinds of stories?
I'm looking for a little heart, and a connection. The last story that I just wrote at that program, CCA is what it's called, was a former student in that program came back to be a teacher. And he came back because the teacher he had at CCA was so engaging, and he really felt that tug toward that. And when he left CCA, he didn't go into a college for teaching. He went into the career field. And so, and there's some alternative certification involved and all that. But when he came back, he's able to tell those kids, hey, I've been in your shoes. So this is what you need. So there was heart there because he had been there. He understood what the students are going through, and he's still fairly young. And now he's teaching them. And I think that's a special connection that really pulls well at a story. So when I go do stories, I really do look for a heart and a connection. And of course, something that might also spill over, because we're starting a magnet school push for enrollment. And that's a magnet school. So it also ties into that too. But career and tech education stories are so good. We've got students that when they leave here, they're EMTs, and we've got we just opened a magnet school that's for law and medical services. So those kids have certifications that give them a head start into the career field that they want to go to. So those are kind of the stories that I like to cover, along with just the cute kids and that type of thing.
And that goes back to choice, right? Giving students a choice to work on things that will help them, whether they choose to go direction A or B. They get to have that choice. How do you evaluate success as a public relations professional?
Well, kind of a tricky question, but we are about to start some surveys. We're doing a student and staff survey, a parent survey, and then a community survey. And so we want to find out how we are doing as a school district, and what are some of the challenges that parents see, what are some of the successes that the students like, what do they like, are they getting the bang out of their teacher that they need to, and that they feel that they deserve, that type of thing. But in our programming here in the communications department, we do do a lot of Google analytics. Of course, we're big on social media. We watch that. We watch the trends, and we celebrate when a story or two might go viral. We've had a few videos that went viral that were very successful. Our biggest ones are always on social media is when there's a bad weather day. That's when we get the most engagement, of course, and the most fun. We've done videos based on some of those comments because they're pretty funny.
I bet. And whenever you get that data, those survey results, how does that impact or change the kinds of choices you make in your day-to-day storytelling?
It will. We did a new thing this past year called listening tours, and it was really eye-opening. We did it specifically on a subject matter of our website, And we'll do other listening tours on different subject matters. But this one was specific for a website. And we went out to the 4 parameters of our district. We went to like eight different areas, I think, and asked parents to tell us, look at the website, tell us what they liked, what they didn't like. And we literally listened. We didn't, argue and explain why we did something this way, that it was ADA compliant or whatever. We just listened. And it was real eye-opening. And we are now implementing a lot of those suggestions that they said that were an issue for them. And it's exciting because our website's getting better and better.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, the advocacy that's done as a parent, right? You have parents who are coming up advocating for their community, advocating for their students, advocating for all sorts of maybe issues that are personal to them. Some of those can be divisive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those kinds of issues and that kind of advocacy can lead to divisions in the community. How do you handle those kinds of divisions, whether they be value-based or even political maybe, in your day-to-day work?
Really, we don't handle that really that much because it is political and we stay apolitical. There was a big divisive when the mask and the mask mandates were out, and parents were either for or against and all that sort of stuff. Our department just goes by what the superintendent, and the board decides that they want. So if it's mask mandate, we would communicate that out to the parents. This is what's expected. But I mean, when there's divisiveness and parents are upset, there's actually a whole different department that handles that. I call it the complaint department, but they're the admin department.
Do you have any illustrative projects that you're excited to share about that could help our audience to understand the magic that happens in public relations?
Absolutely. One of the things I'm working on now, and it kind of started with that other story I was telling you about from the CCA guy, is a whole series on teacher features and then alumni features and then student features. So I want to tell them from the voice of those 3 audiences. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on, trying to do one every 2 weeks and get that posted on the website and push it out on social, because people really like to hear about people. And those are the best, some of the best posts that we get on social media. So I'm really excited about doing that. Also, we're pushing out a lot about partnerships and engaging businesses, getting involved with their schools, their local schools. There's a lot to be had with that partnership, that combination, letting, especially at the high school level, businesses that, you might be a cement plant that you can talk to construction careers kids about job opportunities or scholarship opportunities or even just a career field in your industry. And that's we're about to launch our Northside Education Foundation here in Northside is about 25 years old, I think. And next week is their big gala, which also combines businesses with volunteers and then some of the school people. So that's one of the projects I'm literally working on right now to get that finalized. But that's pretty.
How do you persuade these businesses and volunteers to show up? How do you persuade people to give to
and
the
they
cause?
pay to do it.
And they pay. How do you manage that? That sounds like a magic act again.
We've like I said, we've worked for 25 years, and the partnerships. I mean, they have a financial gain in it, and that a lot of it is people who are building companies who are building our new schools are doing renovations. So a lot of those contractors and architects are part of that, but. We have a good reputation, and they want to be part of Northside. They understand this, public school is important, and they're looking for an educated workforce. So there's a win-win in this partnership. So I think that's what's developed over the years.
And all that work paying off for helping that community to thrive.
Yeah, right.
Right. So is there anything that you wish I had asked today? Are there any questions that you think might serve our students if I had asked them?
Well, one of the things I like to say when I go out to career days at colleges is that if you're interested in educational PR, you just need to be a person that loves kids, because that's our industry, but has a good customer service attitude, loves to write, loves to do. It's a little bit of everything. Yes, I'm in a large school district, but there's a ton of small baby school districts that have school PR. After COVID, other even really tiny school districts understood the importance of communication. If COVID taught us anything, is that communication is key to anything. And so there's a lot of brand new school PR people now working in small districts. So you might wear a million hats, which is a great learning tool. That's how I got started. I was in a one-person communications department to begin with. And it's a fun industry because you do it all, and no day is the same. You may always do the same events every year, like we do Educator of the Year ceremonies or retirement ceremonies or whatever, but they're all different. They're all different theme-based and all that sort of stuff. So if you want a career that will give you a lot of experience and a lot of opportunities and a lot of it makes you feel good because you're supporting something that's important, and that's the future of our country. And so I always also give them this website. If you're a senior and you're looking for a job, go to tspra.org, tspra.org, and there's a job bank there. And there's always jobs across the state that are looking for entry-level PR professions.
Is there one piece of core advice, one thing that people should do right now as soon as they finish watching this interview? Something that they should be doing to help prepare them to get that job after, of course, they join PRSA, they go to this website and they look up those things. What's one core thing they should be doing right now?
Well, another thing is you need to be building your resume. You need to be volunteering. So go to the local animal shelter, ask them if they need social media help. There are, a number of paid internships, especially in San Antonio. You got SeaWorld, you got, Blair, all those. But PRSA can also hook you up with some internships that they know about if you reach out to them. But, volunteer at your church, see if they need social media help, see if they need website help. Just start kind of building your toolkit.
Sounds like the core action is to build that portfolio of skills by looking for people and organizations to help, right?
Well, and when I was in college, I was on the yearbook. I was on the newspaper staff. I volunteered at the PR office at the college. So much so that one of my professors, the year that I graduated, she moved to a college in my hometown to be their PR director, and she hired me to be her assistant director. Actually, she hired me to be the print shop operator, and I was it for one day, and then she made me the assistant director. So it was the connections that I had with my professor, because I was always there. I did the special events, our student journalism, what is it, the SPJ group, did the college's queen ceremony, whatever that called, pageant. And we organized that and did that. So I was that for 4 years. I was so involved that my professor looked me up and said, "Hey, I want to hire you." So, and when I go to UTSA, the PRSSA, whatever that job fair is thing, and review their resumes, the ones that stand out are the ones that have something built into their resume. The ones that just go to school, which is important, but just go to class, do their work, you're not building a resume. And you can build one even not having a job. You can do some, that makes sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes me excited because we ask students to do so many hands-on projects like working with a nonprofit and working on creating a public relations campaign. I know the advice that you've shared today is really going to help students who are working to build their portfolios of writing and of strategies and tactics and of strategic objectives and situation analyses. And all of these things will help them to get that job when they graduate. So that's
Absolutely.
really, really good advice.
I've hired a lot of people over the 44 years, and the ones that come, when I do resumes, I have 3 piles. The ones I'm going to look at, the ones that might be, maybe, and then the no's. And the ones that make it to the first pile are those that have built their resume on those projects and those volunteer opportunities.
So do you suggest that people highlight those in
Yes.
their actual resumes and say,
Absolutely.
this is a link to my portfolio, this is a link to my project? You can see that evidence of strategic and critical thinking?
Right. Right. Yeah, they need to highlight those, bold them, however, make sure it stands out. And just, I mean, I know class projects are good and they're important, but also go out and do something in the community. Because to me, that shows me that you have work ethic and you're willing to go the extra mile. And we're always looking for that type of employee.
So are you looking for a myriad of different kinds of community projects? Or are you looking for 2 or 3 really deep community projects? What are you looking for?
2 or 3. Yeah, we don't expect out of college kids to have lots, but you need to have 2 or 3 good ones.
This is great to know. Teaching public relations courses and campaigns courses too. We'll make sure that they're focused on those real world nonprofits.
Well, and you, like I said, you can go to the local animal shelter, you can go to church, you can go to, Bob's Burgers and ask them if they need if it'd be okay to write some sort of communication plan that, has the 4 steps in it, and it might benefit them, but at least you've done it with them.
It's fantastic advice. Awesome. So, Monica, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you or connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, you're going to ask me those. You're going to have to stop it because I'm going to have to look. It's at Falconberry on Twitter. So that's probably the best way.
Okay. So Twitter's your number one. And they changed it. Yeah, they changed it. So
mainly on Facebook, but it's more personal stuff than professional. So
yeah. So for the professional connections, people need to look you up on X, formerly known as Twitter.
And if they want to just reach out, just have them email me. It's Monica, Monica .Falconberry, FAULKENBERY at NISD.net. I'm happy to review resumes, just chat about school PR, whatever you want.
Awesome. Thank you again, Monica, for joining us today. And we so appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and insights with our students and business owners. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. This was more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Let's talk about sources of information and professional networks. Are there any places where we need to get involved first and early in our careers?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I would first in college, I hope your students at UTSA are involved in PRSSA. Huge, great resource, and they're connected with our PRSA local chapter. So, and you can attend the PRSA monthly luncheons and get involved with that way. And then if you're interested in school PR, there's the Texas School Public Relations Association, TSPRA. Huge resource for those of us in school PR. And if it wasn't for my friends at both PRSA and TSPRA, they're just like your counselors and the people that truly understand what you're going through. No one else does know what you're going through except people that are actually doing it. So it makes life a little easier sometimes when I reach out to, I can't tell you how many times I text some of these people and just say, oh my God, I just need to vent, or do you have an idea about this? I've run out of ideas. And they're a huge resource for any of us. So I truly can't emphasize enough that you get involved with your professional associations.
Wonderful advice. I love that. And are there any other sources outside of these professional organizations that you emphasize that students should pick up? For example, are there any books or podcasts or videos or any other kind of resources that might help students who are trying to develop these skill sets?
Well, of course, I'm also accredited in PR, APR. So I tell all my APR candidates to go to the Bible, which is the Cutlip Center book, Effective Public Relations. And so that's kind of our Bible that we utilize. But other than that, I listen to some podcasts. There's some school PR podcasts and educational podcasts. I really would encourage you. It's kind of like the Bible for me, for anyone that's gone through accreditation. The Cutlip, it's CUT, like cut, lip, LIP, Cutlip and Center's Effective Public Relations. And it truly is the Bible for those of us that went through accreditation in PR.
And can you talk a little bit about accreditation? What's that look like?
Accreditation, what I tell people is accreditation in public relations is through PRSA, the Universal Accreditation Board. And it is, I like to say, if you were having a tax problem, would you rather go to a bookkeeper or an accountant, a CPA? Well, you choose a CPA before the IRS would come to you. So for PR people, if you're having a crisis or some big PR issue, that's what this accreditation is. That it's not a certification, but it's a validation that you've gone through this huge process, studying and testing, that you understand the strategies and the effective communications pieces behind public relations. And it emphasizes the research, what used to be the RACE, and I think it's RPI now, process for doing strategic public relations. And it really makes you understand the science behind PR, that it truly is not just coming up with something. There really is a science behind PR.
And you mentioned RPI. Can you tell us what that means?
Research, programming, implementation, and evaluation. And those should be what you do for any communication plan. You start with research. Why do you want to do this? What it's been done before, all that sort of stuff. Then you come up with a plan, you implement your plan, and then you evaluate your plan. I understood the importance of the APR and through the studying process more than I did through my master. I'm glad I have my master's, and I'm thankful that I have my master's, and it helped me too. But the plan,
maybe the master's might have helped you with your
APR. It helped me in the studying process for sure. But what you study on your APR is, at least from my master's, it was a little bit more in depth. Because my master's was tailored to people who were working in the industry at the time. So, but I got value out of my master's degree too. So if you go for both, I would almost say get your master's first, because then you have the study base and the core information, and then get your APR.
Great advice. Thank you again, Monica. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ryan.